Hey guys, welcome to TST Garage. I'm Bart, and in this episode I have a Kawasaki KLX230 here with me. I will be performing the installation of the TST Industries Fender Eliminator and integrated taillight combo on this bike. This is a vehicle-specific kit. All the brackets are made specifically to fit this kit on this bike. It doesn't require any reconfiguration or alteration to the bike itself. No modifications necessary, all plug and play via the use of this sub harness. The taillight will be available to you in a choice of clear or smoked lens. Like I said, it is plug and play, and it is an integrated taillight, which means you have running light function, brake function, and also signal function in each half of the capsule of this taillight. Taillight terminates in this nice Sumitomo 6-position connector. Plug in the sub harness, and now that terminates in all the Kawasaki OEM connectors for the main and signal functions. So we will not need to do any specific wiring or anything like that. It just plugs in, good to go. For this particular install, I will be choosing the smoke taillight. It is a tiny bit less bright than the clear one. We use a very lightly tinted lens plastic, and then we throw a black circuit board inside. That way that keeps it a little bit darker looking when the light is off, but it does not attenuate the light output in any appreciable way. It's just a tiny little bit more mute than the clear one. So choice is yours. I like the smoked one. That's what we'll use in this installation. The kit comes with the main carry bracket that will install the tail light onto it, and then this will install in the bike. This is our simple license plate bracket that sandwiches in between this assembly like this. You have an option to just go with the simple one or upgrade to our adjustable setup. Typically, most guys look for a very practical and simple application, so this is what we provide by default. If you want to get fancy, you can adjust your license plate angle via the use of this bracket. We do have a separate video instructing how to use the adjustable setup with these components, so please look for that on tstindustries.com or our YouTube channel. All of the hardware that you see here accomplishes the installation of the taillight and the bracket, the license plate bracket, to the main bracket, and then subsequently the rest of it is used to mount the entire assembly onto the bike. And then we have a wire tie that will cinch up the loose wires and make sure everything is staying out of the way and nice and neat. And then we also have some rubber dampers that will prevent rubbing on the taillight lens, between the taillight lens and tail fairing of the bike. That's pretty much it on the specs of this setup. I want to touch on a couple other nuances before we move forward with the installation. The taillight uses LEDs as their light source, which means when you go to signal, the LEDs draw much less current than the OEM incandescent light bulbs, and therefore that will throw off the function of your signaling system. This bike is configured with the OEM flasher relay that is supposed to sense a certain amount of current going through the circuit. When you decrease that current to what the LEDs draw, it'll throw it off, it'll flash fast, or perhaps just get stuck on. So I do recommend going with a LED flasher relay when you're changing your signals. We do offer a plug and play version. It's just an OEM replacement. It also offers an adjustment. That is a separate component that we sell separately. If you do need it, please include it with your purchase. And we do have a separate video showing you how to install that on this bike, and also how to change the flash rate should you need to do so. They do come set at 85 cycles per minute by default. You can alter that if you choose to do so. I usually just throw it in, restore the regular flash rate, and that's pretty much it. Now I know some guys out there will have a concern about having their signals in such a tight little capsule. So you can opt not to connect the signals and use external signals, or you could double up your signals via the use of our Y-splitter harness. You can see here, this plugs into the bike and provides two outputs, and then you would connect the signals in the taillight to one of the outputs, and then the other one would be taken up by an external signal, perhaps such as our BL6 signal that you see here. If you do need that kind of a setup, I recommend purchasing one of our signal sets. We have several different types to offer. With that, you would need the pod signal mounting hardware that will mount the signals to your license plate bracket, and then also this plug and play connection, the harness converter. They come in sets of 2. Drop one of each into your cart, and then you're ready to just plug and play. All right, that's pretty much it on the table here. I'm gonna move on over to the bike and start tearing it down and show you every step in detail. In step 1, we will remove the license plate off the bike and keep the hardware that is currently holding it. That will be reused with our new setup. Following step will involve removing the left side panel below the seat. That is done with the key. Turn your key to unlock it, dislodge the friction fasteners, and then move it towards the rear to disengage these sliding locks. Next, we will grab an 8mm socket, remove these 2 fasteners in these positions here. That will render this panel here ready to take off. Disengage all the locking mechanisms. Again, it has some slide locks and 1 tab up front. Once you get that out, put it to the side. Now, on this particular bike, we've eliminated the seat strap. It used to have a seat strap here. If your bike still has a seat strap, you will take a 10mm socket and remove the 2 fasteners holding that on, and then that will be ready to clear out. Sorry, they are here, and they are an 8mm socket. We'll take a 10mm socket and remove the fasteners in the aft section of the seat here. That will free the seat. Once those fasteners are out, we lift up on the rear of the seat, and in a swooping rearward motion, we will disengage all the other locking mechanisms here, which is basically this tab going under the tank and this catch that slides on top of the tank here. Once that's out, we have access, and I've switched back to my 8mm socket here. I'll be removing these 4 fasteners here. There's a tab back here sliding into the fender assembly, so to dislodge it, we will move it forward. Slides out of here. Now let's go ahead and disconnect some of the wiring. We have our signals back here. Press down on the lock, and that disconnects the opposite connector. And then up here we have our license plate light. Let's go ahead and take this apart. The 3-conductor connector here will need to come apart. Now all of our wiring is free. We will need to remove these 2 fasteners using a 10mm socket. These 2, same socket, and then we have these 2 here that will use a 12mm socket. I'm down to the last fastener, so I'm going to support the fender assembly from the back with my hand. Now all of this stuff comes off. For neatness in this installation, I like to move this setup here, the little bracket that holds our connectors. I like to move that here, so I will remove this fastener, move this fastener here. That comes off with the connectors. I'm going to move this here and just replace the other fastener that I pulled from here. Right back into this location. This is completely optional. It's not really necessary. All right, let's neaten up our wiring here. All right, I'm gonna pull this guy out and just have this wiring under it. That's what'll keep it down for me. That is nice and neat now, ready to go. Let's go ahead and grab our new set components. I'm going to move my table back into frame here just so I have a surface to work on while I show you guys exactly what's going on. Our main carrier bracket is going to be positioned like this on the bike. It just goes up in here, slots in, and then rotates, and these holes align. So this little window will be facing the sky. Our taillight fits in here like this. The wires go through the wiring slot, and our license plate bracket aligns with this setup and sandwiches in between. This is your alignment guide. This will go over the grommet here. The scheme of installation is as follows. We'll line this bracket up here. We will start the middle fastener. Now I am forming new threads in the receiving bosses using this thermoplastic specific screw. These are called plastide screws. They cut the thread into the thermoplastic bosses as we turn them in. You need to make sure that we don't stress those threads. So initially we just put it in and we leave about 3 millimeters, an eighth of an inch. And we will now line this up in a way that we can rotate that screw head into its receiving location. So we rotate about the grommet area, and we will get this screw in through this hole. There is a slot provided. I will demonstrate it several different ways. And now I'll get my other fasteners lined up. For this to work properly, you have to line up all the holes. There are 3 holes that need to line up coaxially. Once you get that lined up, you form that thread in there. These fit pretty much in one configuration. So once you get these all lined up and the thread started, go ahead and bottom this out. Now by bottom, I mean you take that screw and you get it until it gives you feedback that it's already bottomed out, and then give it maybe like a 5 degrees more. Now on the third screw here, that is a tight fit. I'm going to switch to a tiny flathead. This was a limitation during design that we just had to deal with, but with a tiny flathead, we can get that in here without scratching up the surface of the bracket, and we can tighten it down adequately. And now this is good to be placed on the bike. Before we do that, I'd like to get my zip tie in here. I like to cinch down the zip tie after the installation's pretty much almost complete. So I will feed the zip tie through these 2 little slots, through the bottom to the top and then back to the bottom. And the reason for that is this remains exposed after installation on the bike, and I can cinch it down towards the end of the install. All right, so we keep that loose for now. Let's bring that over to the bike. Like I said, it just fits in here, slots in like this, rotates, and now these locations are lined up. There's no set direction for these screws, but for me, they look a little bit more cosmetic with the head towards the outside. This is not ever viewed. So I'm gonna go screw, washer from the bottom to the top, then washer and nut. Now I'm gonna grab a 4mm Allen. That's for the screw head. And then a 10mm tool, whether you have a box wrench, a socket, open-ended, whatever you're using, it's fine. And get these almost to the bottom, leave a little bit of adjustability in them. Now what you'll notice is that we did provide some adjustability on forward and aft positioning of this entire setup. I typically start with this edge lined up to this edge of the frame. The reason why we left adjustability is because these less expensive Kawasaki motorcycles are jig welded, and sometimes the robotic welding places stresses on the tubes and things like that during manufacture, and they do tweak a little bit. So each bike will fit just a little different. So we want to leave adjustability for you guys in case something doesn't line up and you need to come in here and make that adjustment. So let's start here with edge on edge, and we'll see how that works for us. All right, now I like to make sure that my sleeve is forwarded over all the wires here. I think at this point I can actually cinch this down. It's not a problem. That'll be good here. I'll feed this through here for now. Grab my sub harness that came with the kit. Make that connection. Overlap it like so. And make the connection on the main 3 conductor connector. Just have to see this guy, he's hidden in a boot. That's as far as I could withdraw him. So you just line up your locking mechanism and then you push it in until you actually feel the lock engage. And we can actually power up the bike and see if we have function. That's looking good. Let's go ahead and throw on maybe left signal, see which way to configure this. I have it backwards now. So green to black for this motorcycle produces left on left. Brown to gray produces right on right. Now, I did mention in the beginning of this video that this bike will likely flash fast after the removal of OEM signals and going with LED signaling equipment, so that's what's happening here. This is flashing considerably faster, but not crazy. I think once we change the front signals to LED, this will go even faster. So if you do want to combat that, our LED flasher relay would just replace this guy. I did say we do have a separate video, but you know, we are already in here, we may as well change it up. This will need to get zip tied because our relay that comes on the bike has a captive rubber keeper. So we'll need to zip tie this here. I'll do that later. That's not in the scope of this video. Let's continue cruising to completion here. I'm gonna neaten up my wires. There is one thing that I did not talk about just yet, so I'll take the opportunity now. This setup does not include a license plate light by default. All of our parts are manufactured as modules and sold as modules. So if you need a license plate light, please drop that into your cart before you check out, and therefore you will receive all the components that you're after. I will demonstrate how to route a license plate light that we sell here. Here's our low profile license plate light, really minimal, very nice, very bright. I think demonstrating it at this point will be good for you guys to know what you're getting into if you are getting a license plate light. So you basically wire it in through the outside of the bracket, through the center triangle slot, and then get up through the screw slot here. If you already cinched down your wire tie, then you could just go around this guy and that'll keep it in place for you. If you still have it loose, you can take advantage of routing it through there. Either one is good. Basically get it up here, and then you would wire it as per the instructions in our license plate light video, which means you would use the 2 posi-tap connectors that this kit comes with to either wire it into this, the wires in this connector here, or alternatively, you can snip off this part of the wire with the connector from your OEM license plate light get that wired together via the use of our posi taps, which are toolless and easy to use, and then you have a plug-and-play setup. Like I said, all of those instructions are contained within the license plate light video that we offer, so I will not be performing this on camera here. It's out of the scope of this module installation. I'll just leave it alone for now. Let's keep cruising on forward. At this point, I'd like to bring this tailpiece back into view. It does have this rubber damper here. We will need to take that off. This will not be reused. Now this tab will at this point be used to fit through here. What I like to do is grab a small diameter screwdriver, jam it in here, and just bend this down a little bit. That's actually too big of a diameter. I like to bend this down just a tiny little bit. This way I'll be able to get it in and under, and then once it's flipped over, it points up away from the light, kind of helps it suspend from this piece. Just a tiny little bit, not a big deal. Now, once this is fitted, the tail here is in close proximity to the lens. During riding, you get vibration, and we don't want that to make contact, so we've provided you these two little bump-on components. We're gonna adhere those to the end here in the center of the tail light. You could look for the center yourself on the taillight by looking at the logo. The taillight does have our logo here on the lens. And that'll be a very nice visual cue for centering this. Once you get these on here, make sure you press them down really well. Keep them in place. All right, let's give this a whirl now. This tab will have to go in here first. So we need to target it in there. So I don't think that we're gonna need any more adjustment to the fore and aft movement in the entire system assembly. It does look like we have enough clearance for the screws to get in here. So we'll grab the screws that we removed during a removal step before and try to get these down. See if they fit without effort. They do have shoulders that need to fit inside the well created by the plastic. If you just clamp down on the plastic, you'll distort the plastic. So you don't want to do that. Make sure that they fit down all the way to the frame through that well. If for some reason you have a hard time getting these down onto the frame, that means you probably need to go back a step, loosen the setup, move it backwards, move it towards the rear a little bit more, and then try it again. All right, that's looking good. Tighten these guys down. The rest of the steps is basically the reverse order of disassembly. At this point, we're going to replace the seat, making sure that we engage all the locking mechanisms, starting with the forwardmost. I like to test it, make sure that it's in place. Line up the rear tabs. The actual tabs from the seat need to go on the outside of the frame. And now we'll replace the fasteners that we took out from this location in the disassembly. These fasteners require a 10mm tool. Go ahead and get this fairing back in here. Now the last panel here goes in with the key and the friction fasteners. All right, let's grab our license plate and the hardware that holds that on. If you are using a license plate light, like I've demonstrated here, the tab portion of the license plate light will clamp in between the bracket and the license plate. You can choose to use the double stick adhesive or not. I typically just clamp them in place. If you find that it's dancing around on you a little too much during use, you could always go back and remove that red masking and engage the adhesive to the back of your license plate. Let's go ahead and center everything here. Look. Good. All right. Test the functions one more time. License plate light on, running light on, brake function, right signal, left signal. All right, and that's pretty much it, you guys. As you can see, this just took about 15 minutes. I went from a giant shovel here to a nice, sleek, and sport-like look without breaking a sweat. Used only simple tools, no big deal. If you like what you see here, check out TSTindustries.com. We have these parts and other parts for this bike ready to go. We also have parts for other bikes you may have in your stable. I also do appreciate when you guys drop me a comment. I like hearing from you. I like conversing from you. So please drop me a comment down below, and that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you at TSTindustries.com. Ride safe.